This is a special access need to know briefing on the Florida Maquis. If you are here, you are at the $15 a month level. We do this every Wednesday. Mondays is, of course, the basic level, $5. Top Secret Tuesdays was yesterday. We have Need to Know Wednesday, which is today. Tomorrow will be the $20 level, Roundtable Division, and then on Fridays we do Maquis Master videos. We're going to kind of continue from the top secret topic yesterday, where we talked about bunker mentality and how it can affect your ability to either recognize psychological operations or affect them yourself. When one puts oneself inside of a situation like this for fear of losing something that they value in a apocalyptic type of situation, the effects that it can have on yourself, if you're not careful, can be more damaging than the effects from those you're trying to protect yourself from. And what I thought I would do is bring up the picture from yesterday just briefly to show you what we're talking about. You see, this is a very generic sketch, and I left it that way on purpose just so that you could apply it to your own life. The black square, of course, is the aforementioned bunker. The 5 black dots inside would be your survival group. These things over here would represent your supplies, and outside would be all of your perceived threats. And the problem that we spoke about yesterday was this, is even in a group, each individual is going to have its own definitions of what it believes threats are and where they're coming from, when they're coming from, and the best way to protect from them. But because of each individual being an individual, you will not necessarily be on the same sheet of music as all of the people inside here. And this will cause dissent, and it will cause division. The people out here, not knowing necessarily what exactly is inside here, are each going to suffer from that same problem as well. Each thinking that whatever's in here is going to make their life better if they can only get in here. When they don't look around and they don't realize that there are 1,000 other people thinking the exact same thing. You will ascribe one state of mental being to them and another state to yourself, when really these two groups of people are suffering from the exact same mental disconnect. Because eventually this will run out, and all of this will become worthless. Eventually these people here will turn on each other, because these dots, from each one's perspective, will stop looking black and start looking more red. It just happens, and it's been studied. In fact, it's a tactic the military uses to break people. They'll even put 2 or 3 people in isolation. And it seems like that's kind of a contradiction. How can 2 or 3 people be isolation? Well, when you isolate a group like that, it has the same effects. It just takes longer, and it has more beneficial effects to those trying to extract information from that group of people. Now let me see if I can pull up the next tab here properly. Unconscious bias. You see, too much information to process. Scientists estimate that we are exposed to as many as 11 million pieces of information at any one time, but our brains can only functionally deal with about 40. So what we do is we seek mental shortcuts. This is just a defense mechanism. In a survival situation, there's going to be 1,000 variables. And so you're going to probably more than likely not even be able to deal with 40 pieces of information consciously. This is why every little sound becomes a threat. Every little hiccup in the relationships with your, like-minded group, your survival group, are going to be taken way out of proportion because of the stress level. And your mind will start to make all sorts of assumptions and beliefs that just aren't true. And when we try to fix this, there's all sorts of off-roads that can cause us to be distorted in our analysis of the situation. So it's very, very important to, this is kind of one of those tools they use in diversity training, and I just don't want anyone to mistake that for this. This is not diversity training. You have to be diverse in thought, though. You have to learn to look at your own thought and put it in its proper context. That it might not be the only way of thinking about something. Sorry about that. Implicit bias refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. These biases, which encompass both favorable and unfavorable assessments, are activated involuntarily and without an individual's awareness or intentional control. And you don't have the ability yourself to look into these. That's why having a much larger, more diverse group and not isolating yourselves is going to be critical in a survival situation. The more information you get from different places, the better chance you'll have of surviving. Locking yourself away from sources of input, sources of information, sources of assessment, it's going to be death. And this is one of the psyops, and people that understand have seen this throughout history. Groups that have tried to pull themselves out of more diverse groups for fear of this have always imploded and destroyed themselves. It never works. But still, it is where our minds always go. And this is why they go there. Because of these unconscious assessments of skin color, accent, gender, disability, sexual orientations, all this stuff. If it's different from you, it's going to be subconsciously seen as different. And and I include myself in this. I absolutely do. Don't think that I'm preaching. This is something that every human being has to deal with. We always have a tendency to favor our own judgments over the judgments of others. So when we think of something to be a certain way and we see someone else, either of a different gender, different orientation, different ethnicity, having, a different take on it, we're of course going to diminish that just because of the amount of difference. If someone exactly like us, like for example, I'm a 50-year-old white male, ex-military, living in the South. If another 50-year-old white male, ex-military living in the South comes to me and says, hey, this is a problem, I'm more than likely going to listen to him. But if a 19-year-old Asian, no military background female from the Northwest comes to me, I'm going to be less likely to believe that person's assessment versus somebody that's like me, not because I'm trying to be racist or I'm trying to be sexist or anything else. It's just natural human tendency. And we always have to watch this and not look at the source of the information, but the information itself. This is part of that diversity training, but there were some things in here that I thought would be critical when you're understanding psychological operations and how you can use them and identify them. And some of these would be looked at as just simple statements that no one meant anything by. But you always have to be conscious that sometimes people know how to use language and they know how to manipulate. And if you read through these, I think you can see clearly that if you were to use one of these innocently, you would of course say, okay, I didn't mean anything by that. But if somebody didn't, you could also see how they could possibly use this to make you start to think something or make you start to go down a road. And the scary part about all this is they're teaching machines to do it. They're teaching machines to understand all of this and be able to put things in front of you, especially here online, that cause you to think and believe and operate in a certain way, and you have to be very, very, very careful of it. This is one of the more terrifying things of all, is that when we sit down at our computers or we pick up our phones or whatever we do, we're assuming that because it's a machine, it's going to operate in a way that a machine would, regardless of whether I'm holding it or someone else is holding it. Age, race, gender, all that won't matter. If I go look at ABC website, it's going to show me the same thing as it would show someone else. That's not the case anymore. They actually are teaching computers to know who is looking and to modify their behavior based on who is looking at what. And it's really terrifying. But if they're going to do that, these machines will be subject to the same problems and the same fallacies as humans will be. So a smart, trained psychological operator can actually affect the behavior of a machine. And we'll get into that at a higher level. So anyway, thank you so much. I very much appreciate my special access need to know guys. You guys are great. Going to be counting on you to very soon here in the future be affecting certain psychological operations in the coming months. So have your friends like, share, and subscribe. Mention the Patreon channel to your friends. I have, and I mentioned this in my earlier YouTube video, we are using a lot of the funds here to support other channels that have been shut down on YouTube, that have been silenced on YouTube, and it's doing good work. So we will see you next time. Thank you.